This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering comprehensive support for students with learning disabilities, ADHD, and ASD. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, we teach differently. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. Today, I'm really happy to welcome back my very good friend Chris Heye, that's H-E-Y-E, who is the CEO of Cognition, as well as the CEO and co-founder of Whealthcare, that's W-H-E-A-L-T-H-C-A-R-E. Both of these are extremely cutting-edge, innovative companies devoted to assessing, monitoring, and helping people keep a handle on the mental health status of folks who age and take care of their money. Well, that's where Chris and his company come into play. And so let me just let Chris start talking, and I'll stop talking. Chris, welcome to Distraction.
Okay, Ned, thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on your podcast, and very happy to have the opportunity to discuss what I think you and I both see as an extremely important issue for not just older adults, but their families and virtually anyone else who has issues making good financial decisions. We think that this is a big problem, and it feels like it's only getting worse if you look at the statistics around financial fraud of older adults. And so along with the rest of my team, we decided that it was really time for something to be done. And we have been focusing on financial decision making, although it's interesting that you mentioned the article in the Boston Globe, because we're actually, as you know, Ned, I think in communication with some of the folks at MGH and hoping to help on those efforts in the healthcare field as well. And I can say a few things about that. Basically, there's several factors that are really contributing to this. It's really something that's, I think, is really reaching crisis proportions. You now have about 114 million people in the U.S. over the age of 50, and that number is supposed to rise to about 145 million by the year 2040. On the other hand, you have about 83% of the wealth in this country is being held by people over 50. Think about that, 83%. We hear about all these sort of young millionaires and billionaires and whatever, but really the money is still in the hands of the older folks in this country and most other developed countries. So when you think about those two trends, though, you think about people having money when they're older and this money being concentrated more and more among the elderly. But then on the other hand, you have something like 80% of people over 50 have some sort of chronic disease. And dementia can start as early as age 60, and statistics suggest by time you reach your mid-80s, you have a 50% chance of having Alzheimer's or some other dementia. So you have these people who have the most money they've ever had in their lifetimes at a point in their life when they're increasingly less capable of making good decisions. So that's a problem, and that was kind of the genesis of why we started our company, to address that issue and to help people make better financial decisions and to help prevent people from being scammed. If you look at any statistics that just came out, some came out the other day, by any measure, the frequency of older adults being scammed is growing. And it's hard to measure, but it's happening more and more. I got a call today by someone who said he was David Johnson, but David Johnson had a very strong accent, and he said he worked for the IRS. And I've gotten a couple calls from this David Johnson, and today I ended up using an obscenity, and I hung up on him. I was so angry. because this happens all the time to older adults, and many of them just don't have the wherewithal to understand that they're being scammed. So we initially developed our tools for financial advisors because in many cases the financial advisors are on the front line. You know, a lot of people see their financial advisors more often than they see their doctors. And Ned, as you previously alluded to, many doctors are not even comfortable or trained to do any type of cognitive or behavioral assessment. So we started with financial advisors, and so far that's gone very well. We have about 100 financial advice firms using our capabilities, and then we just recently, at the end of last month, we just recently issued a new release that now enables anyone, not just financial advisors, to utilize our tools. So we're very excited about that. We're very excited to put these tools in the hands of anybody and everyone who might be at risk for financial exploitation.
And how does it work? So say a listener says, you know, my father, my uncle, or I myself would like to make sure my financial advisor has access to this. How do they gain it?
Yes. So the website is whealthcareplan.com, and that's whealthcareplan.com. And if you go there, you'll see that we have 3 tools. And one of the tools is a behavioral assessment. That's called the Whealthcare Risk Profile. That's the assessment that people can take to help them identify whether or not they have traits that make them more at risk for financial exploitation or just poor financial decision making. You know, and it's primarily geared towards older adults, but it doesn't need to be. I know, Ned, you've done a lot of thinking about ADHD and financial decision making, and there's evidence that suggests that folks with ADHD have greater problems making financial decisions. And I'd like to think that we could help screen for that. And then even if you're younger, I mean, I think you know about some of these young kids who have gambling issues. It's really sad. And that's one of the questions we ask in our assessment. So there's the Whealthcare Risk Profile. That's a behavioral assessment. It only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to complete.
And that'll tell you if you're at risk for...
Yeah, it's at risk for, in general, and poor financial decisions. So that's the broader category that would encompass squandering money, making impulsive decisions, and being scammed.
And that is aimed at people over 60?
Well, we say to start actually at 50.
Uh-huh.
There was a study done at Harvard a few years back that attempted to estimate the peak age of financial decision making, and their estimate was 53.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, not 63 or 73. But, you know, on average, people's decision making starts to decline already in their 50s. So we recommend in the 50s. And then, as you know, a lot of things can start happening in your 50s and 60s. It doesn't even have to be dementia. It could be, you know, a medications issue. It could be behavioral issues. It just could be side effects from, you know, heart disease. If you have someone who's got serious heart problems, you know, they can otherwise be fine, but it may make it harder for them to make financial decisions just because they're distracted with what's going on with the rest of their bodies. Uh-huh. So we recommend that anyone over 50 take this assessment. Most people will do fine. And we give you some tips in certain areas. There's some areas that are there are ways to improve. So if you are, for example, there's a financial literacy component to the assessment. If you're not good with financial literacy, you can get better. There's sort of a behavioral component. In some cases, you might be able to get better at that. If you buy a lot of stuff on TV at night or open email from people you don't know, you might be able to learn not to do that. But then there's a third piece, which is the cognitive piece, which that one's very hard to overcome. So anyway, we recommend that you do that assessment. It takes you 15 minutes. You'll get a little score at the end. You'll get some tips at the end to how to protect yourself. So that's one of the tools. And the other 2 tools are planning tools. and they're around planning for, in part for planning for when you may not do so well on that behavioral assessment. We like to talk about the big four transitions of aging. So as you get older, you need to start transitioning financial decision-making authority, right? I mean, at some point, you should be getting your kids involved, getting your financial advisor involved, other trusted contacts. You probably, at a certain point, none of us should probably be making, financial decisions, or not big ones. So that's one transition. Another one is healthcare decision-making. Especially towards the end of life, we all need help making healthcare decisions. And then there's living transitions. So where are you going to live? You're going to live at home. You're going to live in Florida. And then the fourth one's driving transitions. All these are really important, and all these have financial consequences as well, right? If you
say those, Chris, say those four.
Yeah, sure. It's really important. We talk about financial decision-making, healthcare decision-making, living, and driving. Mm-hmm. So the four big transitions. Carolyn McClanahan, my partner, came up with those, and I think it's a really nice way to think about, the big things you need to think about as you get older. Because pretty much everyone goes through their transitions, and again, they have financial consequences. If you get in a bunch of car accidents, that can have serious financial consequences. Where and how you live has huge consequences. Are you going to live at home? Are you going to live in an assisted living facility? Are you going to live in Vermont? Or do you want to move to Southern California? Mm-hmm. Healthcare decision making, I mean, there's studies that suggest that a huge percentage of our healthcare costs occur at the end of life. Right, so and if you don't have your affairs in order, and if you don't have explicit end-of-life wishes, the doctor's supposed to do everything he or she can do to keep you alive. Where that may be not really what you want, but if you haven't expressed that somewhere, if you haven't written that down, if you hadn't shared that with your doctors and your other family members, then you could end up spending a lot of money that you really didn't want to spend. You could end up, living another 2 weeks, but costing you, $250,000. And you're, in bad shape for those final 2 weeks. So we want to help people. So the other two tools, in addition to the WealthCare risk profile, have these planning components. So you go through each questionnaire, and each one takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And when you're done with both of those, you'll get plans. And you'll also get sort of a gap analysis of sort of showing you, well, here's what you said you wanted, but here's what you need to do to get there. And then one of the tools also estimates your health care costs starting at age 60, and also your long-term care costs. Difficult to measure, but we take a swag at it, because I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive long-term care costs could be. And you hear about, and financial advisors are guilty of this as well. I mean, they do these planning for retirement and all these wonderful trips you want to take and how much money you're going to need. The biggest potential hole in that whole plan is based around your healthcare costs and long-term care costs. If you need to live in a if you want to be at home, that's great. But at some point, just about everybody's going to need 24/7 care. That's $25 an hour. For 24 times 7, it can be tens of thousands of dollars a month that people often don't think about. My mother's in an assisted living facility. We're paying about $10,000 or $12,000 a month. I have a friend, actually you know him, whose mother, all things considered, it was $30,000 a month.
Where does that money come from?
That's a good question, and I think that what you see is in survey after survey, when investors are asked, and these can be high net worth investors, what's your biggest fear going, in retirement? Biggest financial fear. Number one is always healthcare costs. Always.
Well, okay, so Chris, so it's a fear, but what, practically speaking, let's say it's a 55-year-old person listening to this show. How does that person use your service to take care of it?
Great. So first thing they want to do is do the proactive aging plan questionnaire. It's one of the 3 questionnaires. And when they do that, they will have an estimate of healthcare costs and their long-term care costs. So that's the first step. To get a ballpark figure of what what that's going to cost. They're also going to get a nice plan that says if you want to do what you said you want to do. So if you want to live at home, here are the things you need to think about if you want to live at home. Or if you're going to move to an assisted living, here are the things you need to think about. And then, so for some people that may be enough. For some, for a real do-it-yourselfer, they may say, okay, I got it. I'm going to go to my, look at my bank account. I'm going to do my own budgeting. I'm going to figure out how much I need to save in order to hit those targets and give myself a little bit of leeway. There's some people who can do that. Other people are going to want help. So one thing that our application enables is that if you are in this category of sort of being mostly a do-it-yourselfer, but you feel like you still need some help, you can connect with financial advisors directly through our application. Financial advisors who are using the same questionnaires with their clients. So you can get help directly using our application. And if you already have a financial advisor, I would say do one of two things. Tell your financial advisor that they should be using this with their clients, or go ahead and run your own reports and bring them to the financial advisor. I can almost guarantee you that your financial advisor is going to be very pleased that you did that.
I'd like to tell you all about Landmark College in Putney, Vermont. I've been a huge fan of Landmark. In fact, I have an honorary degree from Landmark College. It is truly unique and serves students who learn differently. I'd like to say we learn in a superior fashion, but we need help to develop the way we learn to function in the world. And Landmark understands our gifts, and they welcome educators in high school and college settings. Their institute shares information, spreads this information to the people who really need it. They have summer and winter institutes for educators. They have ongoing research. They're forever innovating up there in the beautiful setting up in Putney, Vermont. They're having an open house at Landmark College on Saturday, April 6th. Be a wonderful opportunity for any of you who are interested to go up and poke around. And if you want to register for the open house or simply get more information, go to lcdistraction.org. That's for Landmark College. Go to lcdistraction.org. You can register for the open house. You can learn more. Landmark College, we're so lucky to have it nearby, but it's truly a national leader, a college for those of us like me who learn in our own particular unique way, and with the kind of help we can get at Landmark College, become leaders in our fields. So your app will connect the person to a financial advisor.
Correct.
So let's say our mythical 55-year-old person sits down, enters whatever data they have, and then they're at a loss, so they avail themselves of your service and they get connected with a financial advisor, and then the financial advisor will tell them what they need to do.
Yeah, so what the person can do is you can even share the results of your questionnaires with a financial advisor. You can send them the report that shows how much money you think long-term care is going to cost, and it's going to show, what your wishes are for living and driving. And then the advisor should be connecting with you, and then ideally and likely the advisor will invite you in to have a discussion, to review the materials and see if it's a good fit for the two of you to work together. And you can search, again, within our application, you can search by zip code, you can search by type of advisor, the way they bill. You can search for all that. So theoretically, you wouldn't even need to see an advisor in your local area. If you're technologically sophisticated, a lot of these advice firms now, they use Skype or whatever. And if you find someone you like outside of the state, that could work out as well too, because you can still talk to them.
But let's say you come back with somebody saying you're going to need $30,000 a month. How do you provide for that?
What we also do in the software is we enable you to sort of run different scenarios. And as you're filling out the question, it'll even say, hey, based on what you answered, especially, a lot of people say they want to live at home, right? That's what almost everybody says. But for most people, actually, towards the end of life, that's more expensive. Because again, most people by end of life, they need 24/7 care or something close to it. Either they have dementia or they have another chronic disease. I'm going through it with both my in-laws right now, and it can be very costly. So one thing we do is say, look, that's great that you want to live at home, but really you should strongly consider some of these assisted living facilities because they tend to be cheaper. And it may even say, like, look, you're planning on, you want to move to Florida. Well, great, everyone wants to move to Florida, and the prices in Florida are 50% higher than they are in Western Mass, for example. So we do try to nudge them in directions, and then we also give them tips for controlling their healthcare costs.
Okay, so let's say you're still left with a terribly unaffordable number.
Yeah, I mean, what that usually means is people just have to work longer and spend less. It's kind of it's a reality that I think, unfortunately, many people are waking up to. If you want to have any semblance of a comfortable life as you get older, you really need to save a lot. And I think, many people now are already planning on working past age 65, which for a lot of people, that's a good thing. They want to work, but many people will have to work past that age and really, keep a close watch on their savings, and as they say, you can never start saving too soon. So the earlier you get on that bandwagon, that's another reason we say you start this at 50 and not 70.
So start planning early. So let's say someone's listening and they're saying, gosh, I want to get on this right away, and I can't imagine anyone listening who wouldn't be saying that. How do they do it? What do they go to?
Yeah, so go to whealthcareplan.com.
Spell that out, Chris, because it's
sure. It's WhealthcarePlan.com. Whealthcareplan.
So it's healthcare with a W.
Healthcare with a W, healthcareplan.com. And if you go, there are sort of two sections. There's one section for financial advisors and another section for individuals. Go to the section for individuals, pick out a pricing plan so you can do it. So if you just want to do it for yourself, there's one pricing plan if you want to do it for you and a friend or a spouse or a partner. There's another one. You get some volume discounts. We recommend that, if you're married or in some sort of partnership, that both you and your partner answer both sets of questions separately. And we do that. We don't do that just, to generate more business, because, it's almost guaranteed that you and your partner are going to have different cognitive and behavioral characteristics. It's almost guaranteed that you and your partner are going to have different health care. You're going to be different genders. You're going to be different ages. You're going to have different health care situations. So all those matter to these questionnaires. And you may even have different outlooks on your finances. So we recommend that you finish both of those questionnaires. And then when you're done, at the minute you're done, you're going to get your report. So again, you fill out the questionnaire, you click done, and then right away you're going to have this nice little PDF file that's going to give you, in some cases, scoring where relevant, healthcare costs where relevant, and a checklist, a whole long list of things to do. We recommend you do each of the three questionnaires. Don't do them all at once. Do one a day if you want. They only take 10 or 15 minutes. If you're going to do it in order, I would recommend do what we call the financial caretaking plan first, then the wealth care risk profile, then the proactive aging plan. But really, do them all. I mean, I've had some friends do this, and I had some friends come to me the other day, and they had having an issue with a parent, and they did just one of the questionnaires, and they said it was literally life-changing. They did the financial caretaking plan, and they're worried about the father making bad decisions, and they went through the process, and the father had to assign the names of his children who could help him. The children are going to start going to the financial advisor, the meetings with the financial advisors, and the wife said, she said, there's light now where there was darkness, and that took all of 15 minutes.
Wow! And what does it cost to do it?
It's very, very cheap. We've been told we're way too cheap. So right now we have some pricing, what I might call introductory pricing, but it's literally between $39 and up to maybe $150 to do this. There's nothing else like this out there. There's no one else who's really focusing. Even financial advisors aren't doing much in this area. But
and before you get stuck with a $30,000 a month bill,
I know.
Start making plans now. Practice preventative, planning, and because you get stuck in these horrible situations where you're having to choose between sticking mom in a cut-rate nursing home, which breaks your heart, versus not being able to pay your bills. I mean, it comes down to that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. There's actually been some interesting related literature on caretaking, like mostly, looking after older adults. And there was an interesting article in the Harvard Business Review, and they literally call it a caretaking crisis, because so many people are having to either, blow up their savings account, or literally employees have to quit their jobs to help their parents. There's some incredible, I want to say it's something like 30%. I'll try to find it. It's like 30%. In some employee survey, 30% of employees said they had to quit their jobs to take care of someone. It's usually an aging parent, not always, but because of caretaking responsibilities. And that's having a huge hit on companies. I mean, and there's some data that suggests that the people are leaving. There's sort of two lumps. One is people sort of in their 20s and 30s, but another lump is people in their 50s who tend to be more experienced, higher paid, and they're the ones in managerial positions. And these people, I'm in my 50s. These people are their parents are in their 70s and 80s, right? That's the age, and they're saying, I just my mom or dad or both need too much help. I can't do this. While I'm working, and and there's huge levels of absenteeism. This data suggests decline in productivity because people are leaving because they have to help their parents, because either their parents can't afford it. In many cases, their parents can't afford to hire somebody at $25 an hour, so the kids got to be there. That's tough.
Oh, it's awful. And I have patients who confide in me saying, I hate to say this, but it's really time for mom to die. And they hate feeling that way, but it's a terrible thing.
No, and that's one thing we say is that if you take these assessments and you'll get a plan, and so when the what hits the fan when you get older, which it always does. It always does. Yeah. You can focus on the emotional, physical part, and you can worry less about the finances because you've already planned for that.
Right. You've come up with just an amazingly valuable service, and how long have you been working on this? About 10 years?
Not that long. About 5 years, because we did a study at Mass General Hospital. So the behavioral assessment, the Whealthcare Risk Profile, is based on a clinical study that was conducted at Mass General Hospital with Dr. Tony Weiner,
right,
who's the head of geriatric psychiatry. So we did a study to try to better understand, what the relationships are between cognitive impairment, financial decision making, and aging. And then we came up with some findings, and I think I mentioned to you before that, what really seemed to come through in that study was that these executive function issues are the ones that seem to have the biggest impact on financial decision making. So, can you plan? Can you organize? Can you connect the dots? Can you control your impulses? And then based on that study, we created this assessment. So it took us a couple years to do the study. We built the assessment, but yeah, the assessments it's been out, commercially now for a year and a half. So this is not vaporware. This is not somebody sitting in their basement saying, "Hey, I think this is cool." This is based on a clinical study done at MGH. It's been validated now by almost 100 different financial services firms across the country.
And while you've made it so convenient, and while it's still priced so affordably, my gosh, whealthcareplan.com?
Correct.
Whealthcareplan.com. And sign up, gosh, so you don't get stuck in these terrible situations, and it is, I think, the denial even affects the medical profession. That article in the Globe where doctors don't even ask about cognitive function.
I know.
Yeah.
We're also very much interested in developing similar online assessments for the medical community. Because, Ned, as you know, if someone comes to you and says, well, I think I have dementia, then you've got to, find the specialist, and they take this test, and it's like paper and pencil, and then it's 1950s technology, literally.
Right. You don't want to open up a whole can of paperwork,
Right. So we're hoping to develop something like this, and in 10 minutes we can tell you, well, you should probably have a more serious conversation, or maybe you're fine, and know that in 10 minutes and not in 10 days.
You've made it so convenient. Well, Chris Heye, Heye, head of Whealthcare, WhealthcarePlan.com, whealthcareplan.com, and also Cognizant. But you're really doing amazing work. It's so, and you've made it so user-friendly, so convenient, and my gosh, so relevant and applicable. It's just fantastic. Thank you so much for joining it. Any last words you'd like to offer?
No, Ned, I just want to thank you for joining, and I guess the only thing I would say to your listeners is, we'd love it if you tried out these assessments, and you can give us feedback, and if you like it, take it to your financial advisor, take it to your employer, say, look, we should make this available to more people. So that would be my final pitch.
Absolutely. Thanks a million, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Ned.
Okay, please remember to reach out to us with your questions and show ideas. We love them and make use of them. Our email address is connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. And please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts if you like what you're hearing. We need those. We absolutely thrive because of those. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our audio engineer is Roman Zeitlin. Our editor is Chris Lathan. And our producer is Sarah Gurton.